Hey guys, this is Alex from Wilkinson Audio. We're back working on this the 3MD song. Just gonna master it. I made a couple changes. I think I just turned the overheads up a bit, and I think one thing that's important to note is you'd have to talk to the band about these guitars, um, because there's just like a ton of tracks here, and I think we were talking about automation last, and I think what they are doing is some kind of thing where it actually automates to have like the background tone or something in front when when some of the horn parts are in or something to bring attention to the horns. So you'd have to talk to them about what their plan was there, because it'd be a lot easier to clean these up if it was just like, instead of having all the tracks, if we just had the one like set of tracks. It'd be a lot easier to get a really clean mix out of that, but we'll just leave it just kind of a mess for now. Just yeah, because we can't really solve that problem. Another thing I noticed is the bleed on the snare mic is it's like unsolvable basically. There's nothing you can really do. There's just too much bleed when the snare's being hit. So you'll notice at some parts you can really hear the hi-hat become a lot louder because it's the bleed over the actual snare hits. Yeah, we're living in the it's more obvious, I think, if we master it, but you'd probably have to sample replace that. I have a video on how to do that if you want to watch that, and then you'd know how to sample replace that properly. So for mastering, let's just we'll just get started here. We'll just do SDRR first, and we'll just use the master mix bus enhancer. And I kind of have some settings that I'd like to use for this. Cool, so that's just a way to kind of initially just balance it a bit and give it some saturation on the mix bus to glue it together. And then we'll use Pro MB to kind of, this is a very lively mix and we don't really want it getting out of hand if possible. So I'm just going to, we'll use a preset here. We'll try a few different ones here. So I like that one, and then we'll just take the mix and we'll turn the mix down to about half. And this just kind of gives us overall control over the mix in 4 bands. So if we need more bass, we can crank this up. And it keeps it fairly well controlled. So now we'll just do Pro Q, and we'll do our EQing adjustments, and I'll also add virtual tape machine. We'll set it like so. And that again is just adding more glue. I'll actually put the EQ first before any of these effects. We're going to switch the channel mode to mid-side instead of left-right, and mid-side means that we can either affect the instruments in the center of the image or the sides of the image separately. So if we go stereo placement mid, we're affecting stuff that's only in the center of the image, like the snare and the bass and the vocals. And if we go side, we'll be affecting stuff more like guitars, anything hard panned. So that's kind of an awesome trick for mastering. It can really help it can really help you correct problems in masters. If you ever sent a master that has like a problem that's just in the vocal frequencies or something, you can just affect the mids and then possibly fix that, stuff like that. So it's a pretty awesome approach for mastering. Let's play and we'll just kind of sweep some frequencies and see what we hear here. So our guitars don't have much low end, so I'm just going to do a boost there. Try and be not too crazy when mastering because it's easy to go overboard. I just find that helps the snare a little bit there. And let's try, and we probably need to brighten this whole thing up a little bit. Let's just change this to a high shelf. And we'll set it to stereo so it affects both channels. You can hear that hi-hat issue kind of in there. Kind of like right there. We could try and turn our release time down. But then you're kind of murdering the sound of the snare a little bit. So it's all compromises. And if we want, we could open the mix up with a cut around 400. If you like the sound of that. I think I prefer it without. just our mastering limiter. The other thing is, if you're mixing on headphones, it's super hard to mix low end, so I have no idea if the kick's sitting right or anything like that. Definitely use speakers and headphones when you can, so you don't mix the stuff kind of weird. And yeah, it's just really hard to hear the energy of the low end kick drum. There are some plugins and stuff that do like crossfeed and stuff like that emulate speakers and headphones, and those do help a little bit, but it's pretty hard to compare or to judge low end with that as opposed to just using speakers. Speakers just seem to be the best for that. So. You hear that hi-hat issue kind of here as well. So like right there's nothing you can really do about that. And then it helps to have a spectrum you're familiar with, so you can just kind of like make sure you're in the ballpark of where your mix should be just visually. And that's it. I think the mix might be a bit dark, but that's okay. It should be anyway. It's kind of like an analog, like super analog mix and stuff like that, and it tends to roll off high end when you use analog equipment. So that's not, as long as it's not too dark, it should be okay. This is where you reference against other mixes and stuff like that, and ensure that it's somewhere in the ballpark. It's a good idea to kind of have on hand like the darkest mix you like and the brightest mix you like, kind of for reference, and you just load the darkest mix regardless of genre, and then you just check if this is and if this is darker than that, then you know that you might have to brighten it up to get it to kind of be acceptable to listeners and stuff like that. Other than that, it's pretty well good to go. I mean, you really would have to do some automation on some parts like this, like where this is kind of playing almost like lead like stuff. It'd be cool to have it so that it's more audible, and maybe turn the guitars down or something like that. And that's what's really going to bring this mix to life. And yeah, other than that, I think that's a pretty good overview of how to mix this stuff. Yeah, it's pretty close to how I would do it. I'd spend a lot more time refining the mix and making sure, getting rid of mud and stuff like that. You could just go through your bus tracks and add EQs and stuff like that and just search for mud and dial it out. But I think that gives you guys a good idea, so hopefully you enjoyed that and learned some stuff. Actually, one more thing I forgot to do, I think, is set your out to about negative 0.3 dB. Then if you're using this plugin, this is FabFilter Pro L. Set intersample peaking on and then oversampling to 4 times, and that'll make sure that you don't have intersample peaks, which are clipping past 0 even when you don't think it's clipping past 0. So if you do this, you'll be protected. You'll have no intersample peaking, and it'll conform to all standards and stuff like that, and it's the proper way to do it. So just do that, and you should be good to go. All right, cool. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.